All right. That was fast.
Ah,
Cool. All right. So we'll just wait for people to flow in a little bit and then we'll get started.
yeah, sounds good.
I love all the white cabinets. It's very clean looking.
It's very clean. Then especially, yeah, now that we're moving, it's extra bare. Minimalist.
I
I
love
love your
that.
fire. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you. Yeah, it's like I said to somebody else, I think it's the most expensive fireplace I probably could have in this video, considering it's an iPad.
Is it real?
No, no, it's an iPad.
Oh, right. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's
It
yeah,
looks good.
it's just a simple app, and the free version of it for 4K Fire
Yep.
was this. So very nice little cheap way to get a nice fireplace in the video.
Yeah.
That's
Cheap.
awesome.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. Where are you living right now, anyways?
I live in New York primarily,
Okay.
but I'm actually visiting Kentucky at the moment. So I'm
Right.
bouncing between Central Time and Eastern Time, and then heading back to New York on January 3rd. So
Yeah, cool.
Nice.
yeah, big time.
Yeah.
All right, we got a few people joining. We'll wait for just another minute, and then we will get going.
Nice.
MC, nice to see you again. And
Oh, yeah.
David and Essie, and so many good repeat viewers here, which is nice.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I have to say, it's been very interesting and very nice to see such a good variety of people so far this way. And I mean, we still have what 6 more people to go, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. No, it's been good. I've been watching it, yeah, every day actually.
Oh yeah, I think I noticed the little lion down there.
Yeah.
Little lion popping up, yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the intros and stuff, and then we'll just get right into it.
Do it.
So, hello everyone. Again, welcome. My name is Lane Northcutt. I'm a young adult author, and this is day 5 of 12 for my debut release launch party, The 12 Days of Delivery Company, celebrating my upcoming debut novel, The Delivery Company. The Delivery Company is a young adult dystopian novel focusing on 2 teenagers as they join together to take down the very system that created them. That's a very brief statement. I hope that you can read the blurb on my profile, get a little bit more information, but that's not what tonight is about. Every night I will be interviewing a different author or indie publishing professional and doing a giveaway of one of their books at the end. So stick around for some exciting things. Tonight, I am pleased to be interviewing co-author couple of Maple Lion Fiction, Sophie and Chris Brousseau. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
So Sophie and Chris Brousseau are the husband and wife writing team behind Maple Lion Fiction. Together, they have published 4 novellas, from which form part of the Pirates of Nassau serial, with the 5th and final episode currently in the works, and I believe almost finished. Sophie honed her writing skills working in behavioral science research, and Chris developed his storytelling prowess over the past decade working in video games. They each bring their own unique experience to the table, but it was their shared love of regaling others with a good story and their quirky humor that inspired them to venture into the world of fiction writing together. And the result has been described as a series of action-packed, fast, fun reads. So great to have you all tonight.
Thank
Or
you.
morning.
Thank you for that great introduction.
First and foremost, I just want to get to know a little bit more about you and where you're at, where you're living, where you will be living, and how you've been spending your quarantine so far.
Yeah, sure. So we are based in Melbourne in Australia, and we've been here for many years. Chris is originally from Canada. I'm originally from the UK, and we met here in Melbourne. But now we are going to be venturing to the UK in January, which is exciting.
Big
Yeah,
move.
big move, definitely.
Yeah.
I've been here a long time. I've been here 16 years.
I've been here about almost 6.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
Yeah,
been a
so-
while then.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's going to be a big change for us, but we're really looking forward to that. I guess one of the things we're really looking forward to, so it's actually really hard to get a proof copy of your novel here in Australia.
Oh.
So it
takes
takes
like a month and a half.
Yeah, it takes so long. So we're looking forward to being over that side of the world, back in the Northern Hemisphere, and then we can get these proof copies. Like we see everyone in the States and stuff, like, you know, they're getting the proof copies and working through it, and we're like, oh, I can't get a proof copy of my novel. This is not great.
Yeah, we have to send it to her mom and then have her
read
it and show us on
No way.
video. Because it's just hard to, you know, iterate on the proof, right? You have to wait a month and a half before getting it.
Yeah, and I think I see through Ingram Spark, they always are sending email blasts to everyone saying, if you're ordering in Australia, just know there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take forever. So I think, yeah, we waited for the first proof for 2 months. And we can't get any author copies here in the States, in Australia either. That's only for like if you're in the States and stuff. So we normally get it sent to a friend, then they post it to us.
It'll be good to move.
It's going to really change the way I think we write and produce our work. So we're really excited about that.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be crazy getting your book bouncing. I mean, it's an international book by the time it gets to you, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, totally.
It might as well be a passport getting stamped along the way.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your writing. How long have you both been writing, and what made you decide to venture professionally into becoming authors?
No, start. Yeah, so I guess I've always been interested in the creative process of writing and stuff like that. And when I was, I don't know, grade 10, like I would like to write like short stories just on my own. Then I remember my teacher told me that I was terrible at it and not to bother anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So I stopped actually after that for a bit. And then, you know, that's when I'm like, oh, I'll go into video games because I played a lot of video games. And I'm like, I think I can do this. So I actually like designed my career to go into that. But then I think it was like maybe 7, 8 years ago, I was like, oh, I'll try writing again. So I started writing a bunch. And then I just had all this Google Drive filled with books. Like just like some of them were complete, a bunch of novellas, a bunch of stuff like just like 40,000 words of just, you know, a book basically. And then I was like, but I always hated doing the editing and the second draft. And then, you know, like the second, third draft, editing. I'd done it once before in a novella, but then I was like, I can't, like this part just drives me nuts. But then I met Sophie, and then she was writing for research papers.
Yeah.
But she was doing like,
so it's scientific writing. It's not nonfiction. Very dry.
Very dry stuff. But then at one point, so she was working with these people, and they're like, oh, like she was kind of editing their work essentially. And I read that, and she's like, oh, can you give this a read? And I read it, and I was like, for something really boring, this is actually really good. Like it's, I'm like, you actually made it sound good. And then I asked Sophie if she was interested in writing with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, well, let's see what you got. And then I gave her the folder, and she went through it, and she saw the pirate one. She's like, this is not the worst. And then she's, yeah,
we were just like, yeah, I think
let's give it a
we can
shot.
make this work.
Yeah.
And I've never written fiction before, so this is my first year writing fiction. I've only ever written, like scientific-y stuff and stuff for uni and, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, so it's been really interesting to sort of learn the differences. And like when I started out, I had no idea about, like how to write dialogue and this and that, but I did find with the dialogue, like I love writing that. It comes quite naturally, but I think that's maybe because I come from like a psych background and a behavioral science background. So I feel like I know people well and their sort of body language and behavior. So I find dialogue is like totally my thing.
Yeah. Same with me. Like when I got some people to read, you know, what I wrote, they're like, oh, we really like your style. Because my style's pretty different, I think, than others.
Yeah.
And Sophie adapted, well, I think she has the same style. So we just, it actually works out pretty well. Like I think the book's pretty good.
I'm very excited for everybody to get a sneak peek into your process and also to read your book when the full thing comes together. But you mentioned that you got together to write before you were married, right? So
Oh, no, it was
No,
after. It was
no,
after.
Oh, this was after. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I had thought that was all before. So can you talk a little bit about, before we get into the rest, can you talk a little bit about how the scientific writing and the video game writing kind of inspired you, but also maybe hindered you a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess, well, the scientific writing, how did that help? I guess that for me, that helped with structure and things like that, and also being concise. So when you're writing for journals and research papers and things, you have to be concise. They don't want, you know, some sort of waffle around. They're like, get to the point. What is the point? So for me, I guess that helped with my editing and things like that, because it taught me to be concise. But initially, I found it really weird writing and not referencing. So because you have to reference every single thing, you know, when you're writing for journals and such. And then this was the first time that I was, honestly, I felt like I was free. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm free. I can write like actually whatever I want. And it was really liberating. So, what about video games for you?
So yes, I never actually wrote for video games. I'm more of a designer, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I used a lot of that. I don't know, I guess you just learn a lot of stuff working in video games that you can,
about story.
just
really.
about story, structure. And I met one of the game designers I met at my last job. He's big into writing, so he gave me all these books on how to write and stuff like that. And he really helped me out on story structure and how to make a character likable. And there's actually a lot of good talks out there that make it, it's actually like, there's a bunch of tricks to it. But also like studying video games, and he's, you know, like him and I, we would talk about Uncharted 2. And he's like, oh, let's look at Uncharted 2 and let's look at why Nathan Drake is a likable character. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we broke it down and we dissected it. And then I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting. So then I started dissecting other characters in other works, like Aladdin, I think is one of the best like intros for how to make a likable character. Anyway, so that part helped, is just being around creative people. And then them just kind of showing me tricks, but also in video games, there's all kinds of things that you do to keep the game interesting. So it's like, I don't know, I like to apply that to the book as well, and just, you know, about flow and just like the peaks and troughs and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's yeah. There's a lot of learning. Is it hindered? I don't know. I think it just takes up more of my time that some authors spend reading. I just play video games more, maybe.
Yeah.
Like we're not big readers, which is, I guess, another interesting thing about our book. But we've had people who are also not readers say that they're actually able to read our book and understand it, and they feel like good about reading it. Because I know, like, I have some friends, and myself even included, where the book's too heavy. I'm like, I can't like stay interested in it for long enough, so I usually like bounce out. Whereas when we write, we try to avoid that. We just want to keep you in the flow. And that's like another thing in video games. It's about flow. Keeping you in the flow, keeping you playing for hours. That's like, if you play Diablo 3 or whatever, you're just clicking all the time. You get lost. So we wanted we wanted that for a book as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, we just wanted to make it really accessible. Because neither of us read, you know, we wouldn't call ourselves like bookworms or anything like that. We, I guess we kind of, well, Chris wrote it really with, the title to the book is Pirates of Nassau. Someone asked.
Yes, yeah. Sarah Hill asked, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess we wanted to make something really accessible, and Chris wrote it with a TV show in mind. So we published it as a serial because we sort of wanted to break it down into these novella-sized episodes, kind of like they do with a TV show, you know, and we even include in each novella, we include a like last time in Pirates of Nassau.
Oh, cool.
So people, you know, because I think there's about 8 weeks in between each episode at the moment. So we like to do that. So it's like a little bit of a recap, you know, like you do with a TV show. And I guess, yeah, we've designed it with more of that in mind because we watch a lot of TV.
We have a person asking, actually, now that you're mentioning novellas, how many there will be.
So 5 in total. So we've published 4 so far, and the 5th one is going to be out in January. We were hoping for December, but with the international move, that's definitely going to slow things down. So that's going to be January, and then in spring next year, we're going to publish them all as one work, Isle of Chaos, and that's going to be we've got a professional editor on board for that, and we've got this beautiful cover designed for it as well, because the covers at the moment are sort of like they're
good.
Yeah, they're good, but we just really wanted
I got a friend at work he did it for us.
We wanted to take it to the next level. So yeah, so that's
yeah. No, that's great. And I love that you mentioned video games, because I am also a very avid gamer. I mean, if I'm not, I actually play more games. I shouldn't say obviously. My wife would agree with me. I play way more games than I do spend reading.
Yeah.
But I mean, I play the games where they have a lot of story more so than just shoot 'em ups, you know. So I've completed the Uncharted collection, which I would imagine is great inspiration for this novel, you know, while you were working on it, especially mentioning all of the great lore and Thomas Tew and Nathan Drake and the whole gang. Speaking of that series, did you take any direct inspiration in any of the quests of the game and kind of sneak it into the book?
No, I don't think the inspiration for like any of the quests, but more like one of the characters, I don't know, I guess the world, like the world is a bit like, you know, the pirate world and just the funness of it. Yeah, it's kind of like Indiana Jones, right? Where it's like it's a fun experience. It's a fun adventure. So just that's what we wanted for this. It's like, we want something fun. It's pirates. It's a bit gritty, but it's also fun. And, but no, I didn't really take anything directly from that, but I did, like, I read all kinds of pirate stuff to just kind of figure out what the world's like and what it's all like. And then, you know, watched a lot of Black Sails, watched a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean. I think I modeled the book mostly off Pirates of the Caribbean's funness, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. And did you play Assassin's Creed Black Flag as well? Does that inspire you too?
No, I did play it for more historical accuracy. I was like, okay, yeah, because it's a good way to research as well. I'm like, okay, there's all kinds of stuff that you don't think about. Like, did they have lanterns back then? You know, it turns out they didn't. So you just gotta, So it's actually, it comes tricky when you're like, oh, you have to light a light in a room. Start.
You're like, you have to write something. That's been one of the things. Like, well, just write this note, and then we're like, what do you write with?
Yeah.
What do you write on?
Right, and that's probably where your academic writing stuff comes in handy, right? You do a lot of research, and I'm sure that was very handy to have.
Yeah, definitely. It's been good. I've learned a lot, actually. Yeah.
What's your favorite pirate fact that you've learned along the way of writing this so far?
It's a great question. Probably for me, that pirates were actually sort of non-violent where possible. Mm-hmm. So they actually tried to avoid conflict and violence when they were at sea because they didn't want their ship to get hit. So I think it's often seen in a different light, really, that they're just out there at sea, just trying to attack everyone and that sort of thing. But they actually always try to avoid conflict where possible.
For me, I would say it's I guess I found it interesting that the flintlock pistol only basically has one shot. And I was like, oh, that's why the pirates, I don't know if you've ever seen pirate imagery, they're just covered in guns. Because what they would do is one shot and then they just toss it because they don't have time to reload it. Like, you can reload it later, but it takes time. So it actually makes them look really badass, but it was functionally badass, I guess.
Yeah, and that's really funny because I think in some games you see all these guns and you see the character literally throw the gun away and then just pull out another one.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that had anything to do with that fact. You know, I've never thought about that.
I would say yes. Yeah. But it just makes it look super badass when he's doing it. You just toss it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't need these anymore.
Right.
Yeah, you're so rich in guns, you don't need to worry about picking it back up. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think I've done a lot of research into the pirate side of things, weirdly, more recently, just in researching for other stuff, and I found it really interesting too that they were kind of a democracy before you really saw a lot of democracy around the world. So does that does that come into play on the island?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a war brewing amongst the island too. There's a bit of gangster vibes, I guess. It's like old school pirate gangsters. There's like, you know,
Sopranos-esque for me. That's how I think of
yeah,
it.
yeah. And then, you know, there's a mutiny happening. So there's like a coup that's going on. So there's a bit of non-boring political stuff going on. And then, and I also just thought of another pirate fact, by the way. The eye patch. So actually, I was trying to say,
this is a good one.
this is a life skill as well. So the eye patch. Do you know why they wore eye patches?
I actually don't know.
So it's because they would wear it because when they would go below deck on a ship, they would, and then you go back up, right? Because of the sun and the darkness, if you have an eye patch, you can lift it up and be able to see in the dark. And now I use it anytime I go to the bathroom at night. I just keep one eye closed, turn the light on, go to the bathroom, close the light, and then open the other eye and you can see. And I've used that.
So the pirates are helping you even now.
Yep.
That's great. So what drew you to writing about pirates? I mean, what was it? I know that you initially wrote this early on in your drive, but what really inspired the initial thought?
Well, I guess for me it was the extreme lack of pirate stuff out there. There wasn't, like, Pirates is pretty, other than Pirates of the Caribbean, there's not much. And I wrote it actually before Black Sails was out. So then I remember when Black Sails came out, I was like, oh, cool. This is kind of like what I wrote, but a bit darker. So that one was darker than what I wrote. Mine's like more in between Pirates of the Caribbean and Black Sails, I guess. There's no fantasy in ours. But yeah, that's why. I was just like, oh, there's not enough pirate stuff in the world. And we need more pirate stuff. So I'm going to write a pirate book.
I love that. I think I've heard people say, you know, if you don't see it, make it. You know, like, if you would read it, I'm sure many other people will. And it looks like we've already got some people who have said in the comments there, like Jen is currently on the third and says it's fantastic, and Sarah Hill has added it to her to be read list. So that's awesome. Very good.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So can you talk a little bit about your writing style and what it's like to be a co-author couple?
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess I'll start with a bit about our process because it's quite unusual, I guess. So Chris starts out and he writes the first draft. And so you'd written quite a lot of this a long time ago. But then when I read it, I killed off a couple of the characters because they didn't speak to me.
I was in a dark place.
Yeah, some of them were like way too dark. I'm like, no one wants to read this. So I sort of went through, and then that's where I come in. So I do the second draft. So I take Chris's first draft, I look at it, the characters either speak to me or they don't, and then if they don't, we have a conversation about that, or, you know, the scene, what's going on, we have a conversation about that and sort of talk through that. So then I write the second draft of it, and then sort of pass it back to Chris, see what he thinks. Then it comes back to me. I do more editing on that and such, and then we send it out to a couple of beta readers that we've got. I think you guys could call them beta readers.
Yeah.
Different. I call them beta. And then we send it out to them, sort of get that feedback on, take that on board, edit a little bit more, and then we send it off to our proofreader. And then, then we release it into the world. But in terms of the process, it's very collaborative. We're always going back and forth. And I know a lot of people ask if we argue about it. That's like the main question. People are like, oh my God, do you argue about it? And I'm like, not really, do we?
Yeah,
not the creative side of things. Because we both really value each other's opinions. And it's actually really great having someone to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, and whenever I do the first draft, I usually just try to, I go pretty quick, I guess. Like I try to just be in that character's head and just write and flow. So I'm surprised that she can translate what I'm writing, to be honest. But it's like I was trying to develop a new character in the next book, and what I did was I wrote I think 4 different versions of a chapter with her in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept giving it to Sophie, and I'm like, what do you think? And she's like, no. And then I threw it away. I was like, okay. What about the character that's like this? And then she's like, nah, I don't believe it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I just kept trying until we found one that works, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this will be fun. She's like, oh, this is great. I'm like, sweet, cool. That's how that character is going to be like. So a bit of experimentation. So it's really good to be able to bounce off Sophie.
Yeah, I love having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and I do that some with my wife, but like we'll go on a long walk, and sometimes those walks will turn into me bouncing a ton of ideas, and it's just a discussion about my book, and then other times it has nothing to do with it. But the times where it has everything to do with the book, I very much appreciate her input, and I also have another critique partner that I bounce ideas off of. But to have a fellow author, you know, like, and working on the same thing all the time has to be great. But we do have some people asking, and I know you just mentioned that you don't really argue too much, but do you ever argue about things the other might change? And if so, who usually wins is a question we have.
So it's never usually about the book itself or the writing?
Yeah, you kind of just trust me with it.
Yeah, so I'm pretty easygoing too, so I'm just like, oh yeah, that's fine.
We both are.
We both are,
Yeah.
But unless I don't think we've gotten into, with the actual writing, I don't think we've gotten into any arguments about anything too much. It's more about everything else around it, like
the business side of things.
But even the cover design and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because I have like, I guess I'm not a perfectionist in that regard, but I certainly have. I'm a bit. I don't know. Like, I know what I want.
She knows what she wants, and I'm more like, yeah, it's fine, it's good enough. Let's move on.
Which comes from your background in games, because you sort of put the game out into the world and then, like, you know, fix the
You can
bugs.
update it later. Yeah.
I work on mobile games, like phone games and stuff.
Yeah.
So so that's how we work there. Is like we put it out live, and it will fix it while it's live, because it's just an ongoing game. Yeah.
Well, you can't really patch a book, right? Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, so no, you go ahead.
Oh, I know. I was gonna say it really works out. Her bar is like up here, and mine's like probably here, so it brings it here.
Oh, good. So at least you're right in the middle then.
Yeah.
Well, don't have to worry too much.
I'd say top middle. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
We have another question from MC asking, what time period is this pirate story set, and what historical pirates do you rely on for reference?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we haven't really spoken about the book yet, really, have we? As in the synopsis or the blurb. So do you want to say a bit about Captain Kidd and such?
Yeah. So I'll just kind of give a quick version of that, I guess. But it's essentially, when I first wrote it, it was supposed to be a 3-book series, like 3 full books. But I don't like when it's a series and it's not a story in each book, right? So I made sure that book 1 is actually a story in and on itself. So if we never make book 2 and 3, it's fine, basically. Right. But so it's set in the 1700s, and it's where Captain Kidd. So he's one of the, I think, only pirates that we use as like a real pirate that existed as a reference, and he's the reason for the buried treasure trope. Yeah. So the reason is, buried treasure is even a thing is because of Captain Kidd, and because he was rumored to apparently have buried some treasure. So the story starts off with, like, he's being hung, and he says there's 30,000 doubloons buried at sea, and that'll never see the light of day, or buried not at sea somewhere. They'll never see the light of day, and then everyone kind of goes nuts, and everybody wants to find. So that's like being a billionaire, basically, back in the day. Yeah. So then Isaac he's like a kid who lives in like a pub, and he's pretty poor because he's living in a pub, and he ends up finding this map where someone has started to look for his treasure before he even died. So someone knew Kidd, and he knew that he buried it, so he started looking for it, and he marked off all the islands in Nassau where they've already looked. And Isaac is like, his name's Isaac, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna listen to other people's stories in the pub, and instead of me traveling everywhere, I'll just mark them off myself. And then once I whittle it down to one island, then I'll be able to get a ship and go and check it out and find it. So that's how it starts off. So we used Kidd's
our main one, and then it's set in the early 1700s, which has meant a lot of research.
Yep.
Right, and that's the golden age of piracy, right?
Yeah, golden age of piracy. Yeah,
that's right.
So did you take any reference from your own lives through some of these characters? Do you feel like you resonate with these characters in a specific way?
Yeah.
Like I've probably met somebody who's like most of the characters.
Yeah.
I've always like we meet a lot of weird people. We're the type of people that the people that you don't want talking to you on the streets, they'll talk to us. So like we meet a lot of people. I don't know what it is about us. I don't know. People just want to talk to us and tell us their stories, which is great. I love it because I hear all kinds of interesting things, and then we get to write about that. And Sophie's actually the exact same way. We get to write about that in our book when we create our characters. And I know some people are like, "Oh, there's no way this is like realistic," and then I'll be like, oh, "I've actually met someone who's just like that," and or who's done that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I found it quite not easy to write in that regard, but like I did have certain people in mind that I've met throughout my life that have sort of inspired those characters, just their personalities and such, and not necessarily like all the killing of other people that happens in the book. But certainly people, I've worked for years in healthcare, so a lot of people, like, I've come across a lot of people with substance abuse issues and things like that. And so, like, a lot of the main character is an alcoholic. And, so I guess I have sort of taken snippets of that throughout my life and that sort of experience too, and injected a little bit of that into the characters. Yeah. But not like intentionally. It's more like a feeling. Yeah.
Right. Now, we have another question of how long have you been writing together? Like how many years have you been writing together?
I think
we started this year. We started in January. Right, yeah, we started in January this year.
So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
Exactly.
I love that. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into your self-publishing journey, how it's been for you getting into the business and any trial and error, that you've had to face?
Yeah, definitely. So it's been fantastic. The writing community here on Instagram has been amazing. They've really provided a wealth of knowledge and been so supportive. I'm sure you find that, Lynn. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
So supportive. So that's been really, really great. That's really helped us on our self-publishing journey. We didn't ever discuss the option of going traditional, really, did we? We just didn't feel like it was something we wanted to do. We really wanted to create a product that we have entire creative control over. So I'm not comfortable with like someone else doing the book cover and things like that. So we really wanted to just, we just really wanted to
make it our own.
Make it our own, yeah, and have something that we have entire creative control over. Because I think, sort of at work and such, and in your daily life, and it's rare that you have that. So for us, we wanted this to be a project where we have that. And in terms of self-publishing, I think the most challenging thing has been, honestly, it's been living in Australia and not being able to get proof copies. Because especially when you're writing a serial so initially we were like, right, we're going to do this as a serial. This is going to be great. We're going to churn out a book every 6 to 8 weeks. And then we couldn't get a proof copy of it.
Which is a problem for the paperbacks.
E-books
is fine. Yeah, whatever, yeah.
But we have a lot. We didn't actually realize the amount of readers that wanted a paperback. Because I think I pushed for that. Because Chris was like, no, let's just do ebook. And I was like, no, I want a paperback. I really think people still read paperbacks very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's been a difficult part of the self-publishing journey. That was something that we didn't anticipate. And the not being able to get author copies in Australia, that sort of thing.
Oh, the format. It's
just the formatting, things like that.
We do it on Kindle ourselves. If we don't use Engrammer or anything like that. So we just go through the whole thing ourselves. And it's just like, I don't know, we uploaded it. I think our first book that we even, so I'm a noob at like writing, doing this kind of stuff. So when I first wrote it, I didn't even know what Justified was. Because on Kindle, it does it for you, right? So on Kindle, it's just auto justifies it. So I published one book back in the day, and I only did the Kindle version, so I didn't even think about justifying the work. Then I published it, and then I was like, Sophie's like, the book looks weird. We got it 2 months later, so it's been out in the wild for a while.
Right.
And then we're like, it looks weird. And then she's like, well, it's not justified. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then she's like, well, you have to do it in like research papers. And I was like, oh God, well, I didn't know.
Yeah, I was like, why didn't you justify it? And I was mortified, like mortified that this was out in the world, like, and the formatting was all off and stuff. So if anyone's got one of those paperbacks, I apologize.
No, but keep it. Keep it.
Yeah, that'll be a collector's item one day, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so look, things like that that's been a huge learning curve. And we're both very impatient and we like things to move fast. So we're sort of, this has forced us to slow down.
Yeah, it's a very slow process, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
That's why we did it in episodes as well, is because I think the idea of writing like a book for like a year and then releasing it, it's just, I don't know. I think it's too long, I guess.
For us.
Yeah,
like
we'd
we
probably
struggle
lose steam,
with that.
we'd lose steam and just kind of, I don't know. So it's actually been really good to do the episodes too, I think.
Yeah.
To break it out into that. And it actually helps with the writing, I think, as well.
Yeah. Definitely. And I guess one of the things is, so we put it out there and we wanted to get some, just some feedback and see how people, if people are even interested in this world and our writing and such. And then that's why we've made the decision to get a professional editor on board and do some line editing for us for the Isle of Chaos when we release that in spring next year.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad or anything. It's good.
No, it's just we want to take it to that next level.
Oh no, I totally get that. I mean, I hired a professional copy editor for mine, so that when it came out, it was going to be professional. I don't want to trust myself to copy edit my own work because I'll miss a lot.
Yes.
You become blind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have some questions again from the comment section. They would like for you to give us a little bit of a definition to justified, and is that something Ingram Spark can take care of?
So when your text is justified, it's, so it's all like, it's even on the page, like it's kind of stretched out and then it's like nice across the page and looks all pretty, as opposed to, sort of a sentence finishes and then it stretches out the words to make it all look nice.
So it's even as it can be on a page.
Is that something Ingram Spark can do? I don't know, to be honest. Probably.
If you open up Word and then you like highlight all your stuff, there's like a justified. There's left align, right align, center.
Yeah.
There's a justified one. Hit that and you'll see what it does. Yeah.
That's something I think everybody that's watching will probably go do at home as soon as they get the chance. Do you or would you pay a marketing firm to market your book?
Maybe. If
it made sense. I was like, I guess if it made sense, if it was at a point where we want to move to that next level, then yeah, potentially. We're certainly not closed off to anything in that regard. How about you, Lane? Would you or?
I don't think I would pay a marketing firm for myself because I feel like I do a pretty decent job and I would rather learn more about it myself. Now I will pay very low pricing for, say, one of those services like a Fussy Librarian that does like an email blast, to let them know that there's a new book out. But as far as like a full-on marketing firm, I'd rather put the money into more books and editors to make the book better.
Same. Yeah, I think the same really, because I'm very happy with like how our stuff looks. So and I can't imagine. I'm looking forward to sort of doing more of that marketing side of things and learning more about it and getting better at it. So
Oh yeah, and I think that's the great thing about self-publishing too. And also as we touched with as Elizabeth a couple days ago, she's a traditionally published poet, but even she is doing marketing and advertising for herself. So I mean, we all have to learn the tricks of the
Yeah.
trade, right? To make more sales. So
Definitely.
why pay somebody else if you can do it yourself, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, can you give us a little bit more insight into Isle of Chaos and where you're going next?
Ooh.
You want me to talk about?
Yeah. Chris has just finished the first draft of the next book, and I have been like, don't talk to me about it, because my headspace is very much in Isle of Chaos still. So until I've finished that, like, I actually find it very hard to go between the two.
I can talk about Chaos first, though.
Yeah, for
More
sure.
because Isle of Chaos is before we get to the next one.
Yeah.
Is so 6 main characters in that book, and then there's actually a war for Nassau between these 3 main factions, like mercenary guilds, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the book, that gets solved. So that's what actually Isle of Chaos, the main story, is about. But it's also about the map and finding Captain Kidd's treasure. So like at the end of the first book, basically they know where the treasure is. The second book is supposed to be like a sea, the story about going out at sea and all those adventures. Then the third book is they're on that new island or whatever, and then all this stuff happens, and maybe they find a treasure, maybe not. But the first book, it's all about figuring out where to go.
Yeah.
But also there's a war going on, and I think, I don't know why we did this for our first book, where we were like, oh, let's make 6 characters, and it's like so much work, and it's especially the mental jumping between the characters. I think Game of Thrones was on at the time, and I was like, this is amazing. I want to make a Game of Thrones pirate book.
It's true.
And that was the thought process at the time. But it's interesting because the story progresses, but you see it from different points of view, and they're all interlinked together, actually. Like all the 6 main characters' lives touch each other, and you have it from like the top of one of the faction leaders all the way down to just some rando that's just trying to get some stuff done. So it's got all perspectives. So that's what Isle of Chaos is about. I think it's pretty fun, and it's a fun read. It's interesting, and we try to break up the action and with humor. So there's a lot of humor in it that we injected. I don't know if everyone will get the humor.
It's dark.
It's dark. It's a bit sarcastic. It's a bit like silly. It's all over the place. But that's what Isle of Chaos is about.
Yeah.
And then the next one is a detective story, and we took one of our main characters, Jane Hatch, and it's back 6 years, or something like that, some amount of years. And it's a detective story in a pirate world, because I was looking at detective books and I was like, well, when was the first detective book? And it's Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes is like in the 1800s or something. So I was like, okay, so they didn't actually have detectives back in the day. Second of all, it's a pirate world. Why would you want a detective? It's pretty chaotic. So I was like, oh, you know what? It'd be actually really interesting to stay in the world, but write a different genre, basically, and try to. So it's not a pirate book; it's a detective book, but it's set in the same world, and you get to see again. It's the same thing of, okay, well, traditionally detectives, I don't know. It's like they would take pictures of stuff and stuff, but there's no camera. So what do you do? So it's just the interesting things of trying to. Essentially, the main story for that is there's a series of basically these high-profile pirates just being murdered, and in a real weird way. And the guard on Nassau needs to figure out what the hell's going on, or else the king's gonna like come in and shut down all of Nassau. So he brings on Jane Hatch to help, who is everybody thinks she's a mind reader because she can read people, but she cannot. So it's interesting. I think it would be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
That sounds really interesting. I mean, I love the idea of a detective who has to essentially rely on their memory more than anything, I guess, for clues and such, because you can't take a photo, like you said, and you can't. I mean, if you're gonna write something down, you don't carry a little notepad and pencil around either. So
exactly. So you got to solve all these problems, and what do you do, and how do you solve problems in a pirate world, especially when it's all chaos. So
and what happens if you die of scurvy before you figure it out, right? Like,
exactly.
Do we have any idea of spin-offs or sub-series where we're going to see specific characters from Isle of Chaos in the future?
So that's what I actually want to do is make, you know, it's basically what Marvel did. So is I want to make a pirate cinematic universe essentially. So
Okay.
Isle of Chaos is Avengers 1. So that's where all the characters are there. So I just started at Avengers. That's where I started basically. And now I want to have it so like each character has their own spin-off. Well, it's not even a spin-off. It adds to the world, and it builds up to that book. But it's again, I want it to be its own contained book. So you don't have to ever read Pirates of Nassau, and you'll enjoy this detective book. You don't have to ever read, you know, the next book that we're going to write, but you'll enjoy it, and then it'll all lead to the Pirates of Nassau book, essentially.
Okay, so you're thinking with like we see with the Avengers, you know, that's present day / slightly in the future, I guess, at certain points. But all the other books that you're thinking of will be essentially like origin stories of these characters.
Leading up to that, that's right.
Leading up, okay.
So, yeah. But again, it'll be a self-contained book. So, and I guess like I was looking at just the different categories in Amazon, and pirates, they're not actually a super popular thing. So I was like, okay, well, let's go to detective, because that's actually pretty popular. I'm like, I'll write a detective book in a pirate world, and I think it'll be, I told a few friends about the idea, and they're like, oh, that's actually really interesting. That's weird. That's different. So,
yeah, it's just different enough, right, to pique somebody's interest and be like, that sounds cool. I could get into that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And it's something nobody's really
book.
heard of. Yeah. Now, we have a question of, would you like for this to be used for a movie or TV show? I'll add to the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's the dream, really.
It's suited for that too, I think.
Yeah, it's written in that way, and I think yours is as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it fits very much like the Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Mortal Engines kind of, you know, theme. So, I mean, any sort of young adult dystopian, I think, could be made into a movie. It's just hopefully how good they do with it, right? Or how well they.
Yeah.
So, if you wouldn't, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to some Q&A I got from my story, just to ask you a couple questions, and then I'm gonna ask if anybody has any additional questions to throw them in the comment section now. But how would you recommend starting a co-author relationship with someone you aren't living with?
Ooh, that you are living with or aren't?
That you aren't living with.
That you aren't living with. That's a very interesting question. How would I recommend starting it?
I would just start with one chapter. Just test it out with one chapter and see how you go. Because, so I've read of people who do a chapter each. I don't know how you can even do that. That sounds impossible to me.
Yeah, same.
I think our process is pretty good, where it's I'll put out the bones there, and then the character bones, and she'll flesh it out. Sophie does the most work of this whole thing, to be honest. But I think that's probably the way to go. If someone has a story, the other person can do the fleshing out and stuff like that. Because I just don't know how you would balance a chapter.
But it just depends if you can relinquish that creative control, really. Because I think I sort of admire that in Chris, that, you know, he gives the first draft to me and is like, here, you do what you want. So I think you'd really have to have a good relationship with that person and be able to handle as well sort of a quite heavy critique of it. Because, you know, your first draft, it's really raw.
Me throwing up words onto a page.
Yeah. So so I really think you'd have to find someone and establish like a good trusting relationship there. Yeah.
And then like Sophie sometimes will make decisions, and I'm like, well, now you got to live with that one. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. I accidentally shot someone in this last episode, and I'm regretting that.
Uh-oh. Well, yeah, because it's going to take a little bit of medical help to get that taken care of, right? That's not an easy thing to live with in the 1700s, I'm sure.
Exactly.
I know, right? I'm like, oh, this was not good.
Episode 6 is just gangrene. We have another question. How did you come up with Maple Lion Fiction?
Yeah, okay. So Chris is Canadian, hence the maple, and I'm British, hence the lion. And then what we sort of found when we were starting out, there's a couple of reasons really. When we started out on the social media side of things, you can only kind of put one name, and that's really difficult when you're co-authors. So we wanted to create a name that we could be collectively known as. And then as well, we've tossed up ideas in the future of maybe publishing other people's works as well. So we sort of wanted to create that Maple Lion brand so that we have the potential to do that in the future as well.
And I just want to add to that question is, did you form an LLC and did you make the logo yourself?
No, so a designer that you work with made the logo for us.
Yes, that's the other useful thing about video games is I know a lot of artists and designers, and so it's a really good UI designer that he's awesome with logos. He works on Need for Speed, the mobile title, and you just see the logos he makes are amazing. So I just contacted him and then asked him how much it would be to make the logo. But really, Sophie designed it. Like, she drew something out. I was very impressed. She drew out the logo, and I'm sure you still have it somewhere. But and then we gave it to the guy, and then he's like, "This is awesome," and then he just made it look better. Yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah, and then we got another version of it done to look like a library stamp as well, with the words, the Maple Lion Fiction. You know how you used to get in your library book, you get your little stamp from there.
Yeah,
so it's got like a little Maple Lion one for that as well, which is actually on the back of the paperbacks.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what I guess what inspired you to I'll have to check that question. Somebody else had asked no, I don't have it. I'm sorry. Best advice to teens looking to become authors is the other question.
Advice to teens looking to become authors.
Teens?
Teens?
Teens, yeah.
Teens. For me, my advice would be don't fall into the comparison trap. Like, that's something I even do as an adult. I think that's something we all do because that's, the nature of social media. But it's easy to fall into that comparison trap and compare your work to others and think, it's not good enough. It's not like up to this standard yet, or it's not this, it's not that. This person's got this idea, or my idea is not great. All those sort of things that you can go through. And my advice would be to really just push that all away. You do you, and don't focus too much on what other people are doing, and just focus sort of on learning about writing and that, and listening to yourself as well, and not just being influenced too heavily by others.
Yep, that's life advice too.
Yeah, really.
And for me, it's just the same as when I wanted to get into video games. People kept asking, and I asked myself too. I said, "How the hell you get into video games?" Because it's really hard. And it's most jobs, they're like, you need to at least 1 year experience making video games, and it was an entry-level job. And I'm like, well, this makes no sense. Like, none of this makes any sense. So I had a mentor, and he was in games, and he was kind of telling me, he's like, you know what? He said, just make a game. Make a game on your own. So that's how I got in. Is that like that's some friends who made a game on our own, and it was a shit game. Like, I'll be honest, you should have seen the reviews. They're horrible, and I was like, whatever. But then that's how I got my crack into the industry. Was I went to like different events, and I just showed off this shit game to as many people as I can, and eventually got hired as a game designer. So that's how I got in, and that's how I would say you get in as that's how you become a good writer too. Is don't listen to your grade 10 professor or teacher
like yours,
and stop when he's like, you should stop. Yeah, like, don't listen to these people. Just keep writing, and that's the only way to get better. Is write some stuff down, and
there's an audience for everything.
Try to publish it. That's the other thing too. Is I find there's a lot of people that write and never publish, even if it's not great. To me, it's not truly complete until someone can pay money for it, and that's when it's actually finally done. So just try to get it to that point yourself, even, and just do it, and that's it. Just keep writing, because we even go back, we go back to episode 1 and we find all kinds of mistakes, and we're like, oh god, okay, well, let's fix this. So and that just means you're getting better.
Yeah.
Because now we look back and we're like, oh, okay, we've improved since even that book. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I want to add another question to ask. Would you ever love to see the Pirates of Nassau be a video game?
Yep, I would.
Yeah, I would also enjoy that. I just watch Chris playing video games. I don't really play much myself other than Animal Crossing. But yeah, that would be amazing.
If so, what game do you think it would follow most closely? Something like Assassin's Creed or something similar to the Uncharted series, or maybe even The Witcher?
I was gonna say The Witcher. If it looked like The Witcher, that would be amazing.
Probably, yeah, The Witcher because of the
Yeah.
story elements of it. Because I want it to be story heavy. And yeah, it's hard though, right? Because again, we have like 6 characters and it jumps between perspectives, so it'd be interesting. Like I've always been a fan of the Telltale games. I know they're not around anymore, or I think they're in house, but something like that would be really good too. I think.
Yeah, and I think if you were, and not to stay on this, but I think if you were really interested in doing a game like that and you wanted to keep it in the world of those pre-mentioned games, they could maybe utilize the Grand Theft Auto 5 method of holding down a certain button and switching between
That's right.
the main characters. That would,
Yep.
I feel like
That's
that'd be
good.
an easy way to fix it right there for your.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So if anyone ever watches this that happens to run a game studio, hit them up. Definitely make it. And then the good one asked, what inspired you to write about pirates? Which I think you mentioned earlier, but if you want to mention it just briefly again.
Yeah, I'll briefly mention it. There's just a big lack of pirate books and stories out in the world, other than Pirates of the Caribbean back in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you know what? I really want to read a good pirate story. I can't really find any, so I'll just write my own, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's been quite a lot crop up of late, it seems, but they do tend to be focused on a love story overall, and so we still feel that we're sort of adding something different out there to the pirate world.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now while I'm waiting on the giveaway to run its course, I'm going to very quickly read the blurb for my book that is up for pre-order now. It is available for order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, everywhere pretty much. The ebook is available for $4.99 and the paperback is available for $14.99. So this is The Delivery Company by Lane Northcutt, and the blurb is as such. In a world where the government has sought to create the ideal children, the Delivery Company was born. In a lab, they create the perfect child for families who have lost kids or cannot have them. These children come in different varieties, but are all flawless. They are known as replacements. Children born with a disability of any kind are deemed a burden on society and discarded into the wild. These children are known as the rejected. Anna was raised in the world of the replacements. Styx was raised in the clan of the rejected. When Anna finds herself rejected, she must learn to trust Styx and the others within the group of the rejected. Joining forces, Anna will aid them in dismantling the very system that created them. Together, they hope to gain equality for all and bring an end to the Delivery Company.
Sounds cool.
Sounds great. I've pre-ordered.
Thanks.
So.
I appreciate that. I'm very excited about it. So,
Yeah.
we have a winner, and it turns out it is somebody that I have already spoken with this week, author Sarah Hill.
Yay!
Congrats.
Congratulations. You will get a copy in spring when it comes out, and it's gonna look amazing. It looks great. It's gonna read great. We're excited.
I'm very excited to see this final copy because I'm definitely gonna order it when it comes out. Do you have an idea when you say spring 2021, and what are we thinking? More January or more like April?
We're thinking more like April.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, just the international move.
The international move is
yeah, that's got to be definitely difficult.
Yeah.
Great. Well, do you guys have any parting words for us before we get off of here?
Parting words. Well, thank you to everyone that's tuned in. That's greatly appreciated. And thank you so much to everyone that follows us and supports us. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for all your questions. And if anyone ever wants, any sort of critique partners or any advice or just wants someone to chat with in the writing community, always feel free to reach out because, we're always happy to hear from people. What are
Great.
your parting words?
Keep writing.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's been so great to have you guys, especially joining me such an early day in Australia and an evening here in the States. So thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for having us.
Bye, everybody.